Arsonist has gone through a lot of change over the years. For a long time, it was considered the weakest neutral killing. It took forever to get kills. And sometimes you reach the end of the game, and you haven't ignited, and you only have one person doused. But over the years, it's been buffed again and again. Now, we've reached the point where even the thought of an arsonist strikes fear into any townie or mafia member. One minute, you're coasting. Every enemy faction is falling apart. The next day, you wake up to see 7 people dead, except you and one other person. It's not exactly an unpopular opinion, but I think Arsonist is the best neutral killing, and the funnest. Arsonist can be boiled down to 4 mechanics. You pick a person at night to douse them in gasoline.
You're greasy.
You passively douse anyone who visits you. You can just not do anything to clean gasoline off yourself, and you can ignite, rendering everyone who's been doused, including by other arsonists, a passive, unstoppable attack. First, let's talk about douse choice. You want, above all, to douse the people you think will survive the longest. Now, this will get better as your game sense improves, but generally, think in your head, who are the Mafia going to target now and in the near future? Who is going to be executed or lynched? Of course, this should be your line of thought with other killing roles, but that only extends to who you think will be attacked that night. People you think Mafia think will be protected, jailers, TP chains, rats with dead TPs to work with, or people you think Mafia will think of as unimportant and will leave alive. You kind of have to think like a TP. Of course, you don't want to douse too many of one side, lest you be left with too many of another to deal with, especially as the slowest neutral killing in the game. One other thing needs mentioning, and that's the passive douses you give to other people who visit you. It can be risky to stick your head out, especially since you're a role that thrives from going under the radar, but you'd be surprised how many visitors you get just by being active in chat. Now, you could always just ask for TP lookout day 1, that's a funny strategy, but you have to hope you don't get questioned, and you're lucky with your douses, since once you ignite it will be incredibly obvious who the arsonist is. There's generally 4 times to ignite as arsonist. 1, you go for the nuke, where you don't ignite until you have everyone or everyone but one person doused. You have to have a claim you think will survive in the long run, or you just get lucky and claim TP when 5 other people are also claiming TP. 2, you ignite when you think you'll land in a favorable Kingmaker situation. For instance, you only leave an invest who seems to really hate Mafia and the Godfather alive. Now this is what I traditionally go for, because you never want to be too greedy. But most of the time, it's not feasible. 3, you ignite when there's too many of one faction alive, and you predominantly have them doused. And even though it won't bring you into a Kingmaker scenario, evils are doomed unless you kill the most powerful townies, and you just play on from there, hoping you don't get lynched. 4, you prioritize taking out an important target as soon as you can. This is usually just in ranked practice or ranked when you douse the jailer night 1 and ignite them night 2. When it comes to fate claiming, arsonists have a lot more options than the other neutral killings. As any other neutral killing, you can be caught or killed directly in so many ways, where you can be seen by a lookout or a tracker visiting someone who died. Instead, as arsonist, you can be seen by a lookout or a tracker visiting someone, and when that person doesn't die, it opens the door to a lot of claims. As arsonist, generally I find it's easier to fate claim every TI except Psychic, every TP, and Veteran. Sheriff is easier since you can more easily deduce who's Mafia or Coven if there's a spy via your passive douses, or if someone claims to visit you when you knew they didn't. Invest, you can mostly get away with calling people BGGF also and then saying, oh, I guess it must be an arsonist game. Lookout is hard, but doable if you either copy another lookout will, or just intuit the visitors if you think someone had a lot of them. Spy is a surprisingly reliable fake claim, especially since you can get away with bugging different people. Tracker is hard, but if you see someone visit you night 1, you can accurately say where they went, and go from there. Doc and Bodyguard are easy, but people expect arsonists to claim that, so I wouldn't recommend it unless you think you have to. Crusader is an underrated one. You can say you attacked someone, but no one died, and people will clock on to that it's an arsonist or a plague bearer game. They won't expect the person who rang the alarm to be the arsonist. Trapper is only marginally easier. There can't be another trapper who will out you since they can deduce your fake from who triggers their trap, and it's only really easier if there's a tracker or lookout who sees you visit. And even then, you have to know the exact roles who visited. Veterans you can get away with because you can see whether people visit you by who you passively douse, as long as you don't see anyone else vet baiting. Now, all the other common neutral killing claims are still totally viable, but I mean, come on, that's boring. If I load in as arsonist, I'm not gonna fake claim serve, everyone does that. Arsonist can sometimes struggle to win in Kingmaker situations. You can win with other arsonists, but you can't really win with witches. There are only 2 cases where a witch and Arso win together. When the Arso just ignited and the witch survived, when the Arso just ignited and the witch survived, or the witch can vote someone else to end the game. Because from the witch's point of view, why would you risk siding with the arsonist just in case you're doused? Even other kingmakers like survivors may hesitate to side with you. What if it's day 6, the arsonist hasn't ignited yet, and you know there are at least 3 different kinds of evils remaining? Why wouldn't you lynch the arsonist in that scenario? That being said, when arsonists do make it to a kingmaker scenario where they've just ignited, I find most people happily side arsonist. I attribute this to people finding the role cool, kind of ironic, and let's be honest, it's a pretty awesome role to see win. I only ever see people siding Pestilence and Jug over Arsonist for the same reason, if only for the rarity. Definitely the most interesting interaction is with other Arsonists. Now, the most common way to work each other out is when one Arsonist douses the other, and you both get informed that you were doused. So both arsonists will either know they doused an arsonist or the arsonist just visited them. If they're lucky, the arsonist who visited won't be visited by anyone, and they can just reach out to Arso number 2. Then, they can spend the next night cleaning themselves off, and they can just coordinate dousing different people. It's similar to how serial killers operate, but serial killers have a much harder time figuring out who their partner is, because if they hit an immune, it might be the other SK, but it might be a Godfather. You don't want to out yourself to them. Whereas with Arso, you both just have to keep dousing until you have at most 3 people left. Then one Arso can douse and the other can ignite. Now, Town's counters to Arsonist is not the same as the other neutral killings. The other neutral killings have weaknesses Arsonists don't have. Sheriff, Investigator, Lookout, Tracker, Doctor, Bodyguard, Trapper, Crusader. Instead, Arsonists are weak to jailers, mayors, tavern keepers, and veterans in particular. Now, I know, everything is weak to jailer, but If the jailer decides not to ex you or can't execute you, werewolves and serial killers can attack the jailer, if they choose, whereas arsonists are kind of stuck. Not to mention, jailers can protect important targets from being doused by jailing them, usually the mayor. I know it shows as doused when you pick someone jailed, but that's a bug. Speaking of mayor, there's no getting around that you're gonna have to douse them at some point, but that can be tricky if they have a jailer or transporter protecting them. If they reveal late and you don't have them doused, you really feel the extra day, and it will often cost you the win. Tavern Keeper is obvious, you can be role blocked. Serial Killer hard counters Tavern Keeper, and Werewolf will just kill them too unless they have a TP on them. Even Jug, while still able to be role blocked, and usually just kill the Tav immediately, whereas the extra day dousing once again will cost many an arsonist a victory. And finally, Vet. On one hand, veterans will always side you in a Kingmaker scenario if they have alerts, unless the third party is a vamp. On the other hand, it's way harder to win a vet duel against a vet as any other evil role aside from Poisoner, since you have one less day to work with. As for Mafia, the only real counter Mafia has to you is Bootlegger, because they can deduce your identity and stop you from igniting. More often, you just completely neuter Mafia, especially Consigs. Everything's an arsonist to them once you appear. Coven is more problematic. Coven leaders can keep witching you to stop you from igniting, but they have to sacrifice Coven's killing ability while doing so. More problematic are Medusas and Hexmasters, who have the ability to kill you, and there isn't much you can do aside from try and kill them before it's too late. The same applies to neutrals who can kill you. Most evils with a basic attack can be pretty easily negated, and you can even turn the tables on them since you can figure out who they are via your passive douses. Other killing roles who overpower you, you just have to prioritize killing over everyone else. Or, if they're a neutral who you can help win, try and help them so that they're more convinced to side with you. You can use threats if you want. For instance, you can tell a pirate, "I'm Arso, if you duel me, you'll be doused, and then I'll ignite the next night." But it depends on the situation. You have to size the person up and decide to offer them either the carrot or the stick. Because if you size up someone wrong, and, they might just get angry and duel you anyway, and then try and lynch you should they lose. Now I should mention a couple things to help spot arsonists in the wild, because they have a reputation of being the hardest evil to detect, especially in chaos modes like Coven All Any. They almost always claim bodyguard or doctor. It fits perfectly with the way their role operates, and most people are too lazy to try anything else. Out of every evil, I generally find arsonists the most passive. It makes sense, they don't want to draw attention to themselves before they ignite, but you should probe any passive TP claims if you even suspect it's an arso game. And most importantly of all, arsonists never visit the same person twice. So if a lookout or tracker sees a TP claim visit the same person on multiple nights, they are not an arsonist. If you ask a TP claim to post a will, and it just says a variety of different targets, that just screams arsonist to me, since they usually just want their visits to be correct, when really they're just dousing a different person every night. Arsonists will say, "Oh, I didn't think the jailer would be attacked," but don't buy it. So, arsonist, in my opinion, it's the best neutral killing. It's so fun. I mean, I know I don't normally go for the bomb, but the thrill when you go for it is really unlike anything else. You have so much leeway when it comes to fake claiming as well. It's a lot more fun when you know you're not as restricted. And don't get me wrong, there are frustrating games where all your douses die, but then there are those games where everything goes perfectly. where you've predicted everything correctly, and there's 6 doused people alive, and town thinks they're on the verge of victory, or they're panicking because they haven't found the arsonist yet. And you go home that night with a smile on your face and murder on your mind.